Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 167. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the show, has liked, shared, commented, left reviews. All your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guests today. I also want to take this time to thank our sponsors. Samson Equipment has been providing uncompromising quality for over 40 years. Samson products are long-lasting and made of the highest quality equipment on the market. Each project is built from the ground up with the ability to customize every need. The team at Samson focuses on developing the highest quality relationships with their customers, in addition to providing them unparalleled quality in every piece of equipment bearing the Samson name. Learn more about Samson's professional weight room solutions and the Samson standard at samsonequipment.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Trusted since 2012, Cerberus is making the best strongman, powerlifting, and strength sports equipment and accessories, ensuring the ultimate competitive edge. Every one of their products is tried, tested, and proven by top-level athletes worldwide. So whether it's competing on the big stage at World's Strongest Man or training at home in the gym, Cerberus strength equipment is reliable, durable, and of course, strong enough to handle all your training goals and needs. If you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear and strongman equipment, be sure to check out cerberusstrength.com and use promo code strength_game to save on your next order. Also want to thank our sponsor, Sport Kilt. Born in Scotland and stitched in America, Sport Kilt offers the highest quality custom kilts and accessories. Every sport kilt is made in the USA of machine washable polyester blend fabric, offering an alternative to the traditional heavy wool kilt. Sport kilt products are made for people who like to be active and make a statement while they train, compete, play, and adventure. Their kilts are designed for comfort, freedom, and style, made for all the brave ways you move. Check out the No Pants All Glory selection of kilts and shop the best collection of high quality American made sport kilts and accessories at sportkilt.com and use promo code TSG to receive an extra 10% off your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Paul Oneid. Paul is the founder and head coach at Master Athletic Performance and the founder and lead educator of Coach's Corner University. Oneid started Master Athletic Performance in 2014 with the goal to raise the bar for online coaching through a client-centered, evidence-based approach. Master Athletic Performance provides online coaching for training and nutrition, as well as mentorship to assist coaches in building and scaling their business for stability and longevity. In 2021, he co-founded Coach's Corner University, an online platform that provides a postgraduate level education in all things coaching. Coach's Corner University is a subscription-based continuing education platform that also offers business mentorship in group and one-on-one settings. Oneid is a certified strength conditioning specialist and certified exercise physiologist with over 15 years of experience as a strength coach in varying capacities, from youth to professional athletics in both the team and individual setting in the private sector, collegiate athletics, and online training space. Previously, he co-founded Manulife Inc., running the program from 2015 to 2022, as well as served as a functional rehabilitation specialist at Manulife in Ottawa, Ontario from 2015 to 2020. Oneid holds Master of Science degrees in sports management and exercise science. And during his studies, he gained experience as an intern strength conditioning coach at the University of South Florida before accepting a graduate assistant role at Morris University before becoming the associate head strength conditioning coach at the University of Tampa. He then returned home to his native Canada, accepting the head strength coach job at Queen's University in Ontario. Oneid also spent time coaching in the private sector and as a disability rehab specialist before diving in fully to master athletic performance and Coach's Corner University. For over 15 years, Oneid competed on the powerlifting platform and was a prominent competitor in the sport. Over the course of his career, he has been ranked in the top 20 all time in two different weight classes, with best lifts in competition being an 805 squat, a 430-pound bench press, a 725-pound deadlift, and a 1,960-pound total. Following his time on the platform and after sustaining substantial injuries, he then shifted his training focus towards bodybuilding, where he competed in a handful of shows before taking on a new goal of more endurance and hybrid style training. Like I said, I'm excited to have him on the show today. So, with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Paul Oneid. What's going on, everybody? Today I'm excited. We've got a man that wears many hats, and
Ooh,
specifically
ooh.
the one he's got on right now, which is Coach, which is one of the big ones. We've got Coach Paul Oneid on the show. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Like I mentioned off air, my wife and I are taking a week off going to Mexico tomorrow morning. So, it's the last bit of work before vacation starts and couldn't imagine being in a better spot.
Hey, well, I appreciate you coming on before I know vacation mode sits in, but we're gonna make this as least amount of work as possible. We're gonna make this fun. Um, and I know that we're kind of going back and forth between each other's podcasts, so
Mhm.
it'll be cool to kind of get you on the other side of everything and kind of hear your introduction. So, like, let's kind of start back into your athletic career. Obviously,
Yeah.
you've competed heavily in powerlifting. You played sports in high school, like leading up through your college career as well. Bodybuilding was on the list, and I know
hmm
it's shifted a little bit now, but like take us back. What really got you kind of stoked on athletics and then the barbell?
Um, so my mom was actually the person who got me into athletics and fitness. She worked at the YMCA in my hometown, worked her way up from like a group fitness instructor to being a manager of multiple locations. And I don't remember this, but I've heard stories of, her teaching aerobics classes 8.5 months pregnant with me. And so from a very early age, I was in the gym. As soon as I was allowed to get a membership, I had a membership. My sport as a kid was basketball. Um, Growing up, I never really felt like I could relate to people very well, but there was something about having a ball in my hands that just made me feel comfortable. I was that kid who would dribble his ball to school every day, always had a basketball with me. Um, Ended up playing basketball in high school and then into college. Got recruited to one school back in Canada, but it was a military college, funny enough, and I didn't want to be in the military. So I ended up going to the University of Ottawa to study human kinetics. And in preparation for that college tryout, because I had to walk on, um, one of my coaches was like, listen, you're not physically fit enough to play at the next level. And so that senior off season from high school to college, I lost 60 pounds in 3 months and completely reshaped my body. We're talking like manorexia, training 3 times a day. And it was the first glimpse I got of what I was capable of doing in terms of hard work. And I don't know to this day if I could train as hard as I did that summer, but nor would I want to. Ended up walking on, I'll use quotation marks. I played a season, ended up playing club ball one more season, and then started playing football because I knew like 5'10" white guy, I'm not playing in college. So I started playing football, and my first season went really well. I made a lot of improvements. I was very athletic. Didn't really have the game sense that guys who played their whole life would have. Uh, but I ended up actually tearing my meniscus that off season and had my first surgery. It was during the rehab of that surgery where I just fell in love with strength and conditioning. Like I was training really hard, and at that point I kind of figured out that, the manorexia training two, three times a day wasn't going to get me there. So my training had gotten a lot more intelligent. But it was during that period where I really dove in. Like, I mean, I was studying human kinetics, had the injury, wanted to rehab properly, and I just dove in. When I'm interested in something, I will completely immerse myself in it. And it was at that point where I realized, strength and conditioning is what I want to do for a living. And I devoted the next couple of years to that. That was 2007. Got my first personal training job. I was obviously friends with the football players at the school, so I started prepping a lot of them for the CFL draft. And then I went and did an 1 week internship, I guess, externship with Joe DeFranco. Um, and then I decided that after I graduated, I was going to go do an internship at the best university I could find. And that was the year that Ron McKeefery got the strength coach of the year. I believe it was 2009, 2010 season. And I moved down there, did an internship, ended up staying on and starting a master's degree at the University of South Florida. About halfway through that, there was a coaching change, and I really didn't vibe with the new staff. And so I went and applied. I think I applied for 386 jobs until I got one. And that's not a hyperbole. That's legitimately 386 jobs. Finally got one at the University of, or at Robert Morris University with Todd Hammer, and I could not be more grateful for Coach Hammer. Is to this day a mentor of mine, a great human being, phenomenal coach, and it was his influence that was probably the heaviest on me when it comes to the way that I approach coaching now in terms of coaching the athlete first and coaching the program second. And after my 2 years at Robert Morris, I was a GA there, did a master's degree. I promised my father that I would finish the first master's degree that I started at USF. By that point, a colleague of mine had gotten the head job at the University of Tampa, so he hired me as his associate director. I was able to finish at USF, work at U Tampa. Then my brother had his first kid, and I wanted to move back to Canada. I kind of left out the fact that I'm Canadian, so there you go. And during that period, Queen's University was hiring for their first full-time head strength coach position, which was actually the first full-time head strength coach position in Canadian university athletics. I got that job. I worked there for about a year. The system and the infrastructure just wasn't suited for the system that they wanted to run, and I really burnt out to the point where I never thought I would coach again. So I stepped away. And that's when I started Master Athletic Performance, which is my coaching company. That was in 2015. So since 2015, I've been working with athletes from all different domains, whether it's, special forces, pro athletes, pro powerlifters, bodybuilders, and we call our general population clients, we call them lifestyle athletes because they're always performing in their day-to-day life. And now I own that company with my wife, Olivia. We have 5 coaches who work under us. In 2021, I started Coaches Corner University, which is my education platform. It's a community-based education platform with about 150 hours of continuing education lectures, as well as a community. We also have certification courses and CEU accredited courses as well. And that's where I house my mentorship, where I mentor other coaches. I guess I left out the powerlifting part. So during all that, it was actually at the University of South Florida that I started powerlifting. So I wasn't an athlete anymore, wasn't competing. And when I got to South Florida, none of the athletes would listen to me. And I couldn't figure out why, because, when it came to the textbook knowledge, when it came to the science, I had it down. I was a stud. But people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. They wanted to know that I was invested, and they didn't see that. There was just a white kid from Canada. And Ron actually sat me down and was like, "You need to compete in something." And I was like, "Okay, thanks." Um, I figured, okay, well, I've been training more West Side, had gotten into conjugate, and I was already pretty strong. I could squat over 600, pull over 600. I was like, I'm just going to compete in powerlifting and see what happens. So I had a pro total after my second meet, completely drug free. And then I just continued to grow in the sport. When I moved back to Canada in 2014, Lo and behold, the gym in my hometown was a hidden gem. One of my good friends, Shane Church, told me to come down and train. And I was like, all right, Shane, that's cool. So Shane at the time was the number one ranked 242 multiply lifter in the world. The owner of the gym, Jay Nira, was the number one raw 220 in the world. His business partner, Willie Albert, was the number one 181 in the world. And then their training partner, Cade Weber, was the number one 242 raw in the world. Those were my training partners. So over the next few years, I'm squatting over 800 and I'm still the weakest guy in the gym. That was the environment that I came up in powerlifting. The bodybuilding side of things came in 2021. I had started experiencing a number of injuries. I had already had another knee surgery, started having some hip issues on my left side, couldn't really train the way I wanted to. So I stepped away for a year, did a bodybuilding show, um, was terrible. Like I was built like a square, like just a really muscular square. And then I got healthy during that process, decided I wanted to come back and compete in powerlifting again because the Canadian all-time squat record was only 7 kilos better than my best. And it was one of my good friends, Jeremy Hamilton, who held the record. And I ended up actually training to beat his record in his gym. And so that was really, really special for me because at the time I was dating my wife, Olivia, who was living in Toronto. So every weekend I would go and squat at Jeremy's gym, Fortis West. And unfortunately, I went to do a tune-up meet and lost my balance on my third attempt squat, which is a weight that I've tripled before. So I lost my balance with 750 and tore both my quads. Went through that rehab for about a year. I competed in a bodybuilding show a year after the injury, 13 months after the injury, and I won. And then my wife and I decided that we wanted to have kids. So I figured, hey, I need something else to suck at. I'm going to start running. So I started running, and now I'm what you would call if I was a loser, I'd be a hybrid athlete. I'm just a guy who lifts weights and runs.
Okay, well then I'll have to change the term of hybrid athlete. I know that's one of the buzz ones coming out. I mean, there's a lot to touch on right there too and unpack.
Yeah, man.
Um,
I kind of rambled for a little bit, so
no,
thank you
that's
for bearing with
perfect.
me.
No, it's perfect, and I think it's perfect because it also fits with most of the coaches that we always talk to. I mean, damn near all of them. It's like your coaching career and your athletic career, they're so intertwined. Like, yeah, you can pull the bits and pieces out of them and you can like pull back the thread, but they're always in a
Always.
way still shifting and they're all making an impact on one another.
Mhm.
And it's cool to kind of see the career and like obviously like injuries and like longevity in the career and like pushing the envelope to try to beat world records and go after something that's like difficult and for a lot of people feel is unattainable. Like there are a lot of high risks that are involved in it. And I know the process to get back to that wasn't easy, but it's cool to see also you shift your focus and mindset and learn from that as well.
There's a funny story that goes along with that. So in my undergrad, one of the classes that we had to take was on kind of the pedagogy of coaching, and we were in a lecture about goal setting. And in under in my education in general, I learn very quickly, and I'm not the best at paying attention in class. And the teacher in our goal setting lecture called me out, and she's like, "Oh," I was like, "Huh?" This is on my computer. Back in the day when it was like MSN Messenger kind of thing. Um, I pulled my head up. I'm like, "Yep." And she's like, "What's a goal that you have?" I'm like, "I want to squat 800 pounds." And everyone knew me as like the meathead in the class. And they all started laughing. At the time I said that, there had only been three people who had ever done that. And I had no idea. I just was like, I'm gonna squat 800 pounds. Because I weighed 200 pounds. I'm like, four times body weight. That's pretty cool. 800 pounds. And so when I did that in 2015, I emailed the video to my teacher. And she her reply was so good. She's like, I knew you could do it. Congrats. That was it. I'm like,
Simple.
hey, thanks.
Wow. That I mean, it's kind of nice to go back and be able to do that and it's crazy that you had that goal too in mind. And even like it wasn't as solidified probably as it started
No.
getting as you got closer and closer and really started to map out your career and then started to chip away to see how easy it is, like how difficult it is to go
Mhm.
from even just a 5 pound PR or a 1 kilo PR. Like it's feels people train for years to just try to make over
Oh yeah.
that milestone, that hump that looks insurmountable.
Especially when you're trying to put together a total. Like people forget powerlifting isn't just three lifts. You're scored on your total. So if you go in and you, let's say, blow your load on a huge squat, and then your bench and your deadlift suck that day, which has happened to me, um, you're not going to win. So to put together that Goldilocks meet of your best bench, your best squat, your best deadlift, it doesn't happen very often. There was a period of like 5 years where I didn't PR my total until I did, but you still keep chipping away. And I think there's so many lessons that we can pull from sport or from competition into day-to-day life. And that's ultimately what we've built the ethos of our business around is, raising the bar for yourself in every capacity. So just chipping away at these goals, chipping away at the standard that you hold yourself to, chipping away at habit changes, chipping away at body composition shifts. It's just those are the lessons that training taught me.
Yeah, those things are pivotal in like any career and for anything that you're trying to create an actual good habit for.
Mhm.
And I mean, raising the bar, raising the standard, it's a good mantra that you guys have, like both from the barbell and just from like your own standards and your goals and everything. It fits both ways. I wanted to kind of touch on like what kind of Coach Mac talked to you about like when you first got into like your coaching role and like you were working with some of your buddies and like some football guys preparing and like doing some personal training and really kind of like cutting your teeth on just
Mhm.
that coaching athlete coaching client relationship, but then you sought out who was going to be the best at that time. Like I think Mac probably won like coach of the year that year or the year prior,
Mhm. Yeah.
so and USF was still at that point in time like in that old school gritty like eight lifts a day kind of phase.
Oh yeah.
Um, but he touched on it too. He's like you have the science portion, like you got to get the art, you got to figure out how to talk to athletes.
Mhm.
Was that kind of one of the reasons behind like you blending that together with Coach's Corner U, like actually having some anecdotal stuff in there, some actual presentations from coaches that aren't just always like kind of that CU like textbook based, and
Mhm.
then also like how how was like that powerlifting like phase of everything? How were you able to take like that athletic prowess that you put into the barbell and spin it to the athletes? Because it's not a clear cut, like I'm gonna lift, I'm gonna train hard, and they're just gonna listen to me.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been so blessed with mentors in my career. At USF, yeah, Ron was the boss, but Frank Wintrick was his first assistant, and then Mark Hickok was his second assistant. Mark is still like Frank was at UCLA and Virginia and what's that Mormon school?
He was
Uh,
at he was at
BYU.
Utah State. Was he at Utah
He
State or
was at
B
Utah State before USF, and then he was at BYU and North Texas.
North Texas? Yeah.
And then Mark Hickok, who's still the head at Vermont. And then I had Todd Hammer at Robert Morris, and then I had Cam Davidson, who was at Penn State, who's still a great friend of mine. He's actually in Raleigh now at
NC State.
NC State with wrestling. I was able to spend a lot of time with Mark Watts, who is Mark Watts, an amazing human being. So, Ron kind of started it off showing me, like, just putting it in my face that I had to be more than just a textbook. He was also the first coach that I was exposed to who always had multiple revenue generation ventures. Like he always had ebooks or DVDs or speed camps. He was always into the business side of things, and his book CEO Strength Coach is fantastic. but it was Frank who really hit home on the relationship piece because I saw how he related to the athletes. I saw how he was more than just a drill sergeant. His athletes, like we all had our own platforms. He was mostly with the linemen, and that group just gravitated towards him. He had this energy about him that just commanded respect. And I always wanted that. And I felt like I didn't really get that until I was at Robert Morris. But that kind of bled into like the powerlifting thing was more so just credibility because the athletes would see me training and they would see me pushing myself the same way I was asking them to push themselves and not quitting on reps and pushing hard. And that was kind of the boost that I needed with those guys. When you have a guy like Jaquan Williams, for example, who played a number of seasons with the New York Giants, won two Super Bowls, I taught Jaquan Williams how to squat. And that's something that like I wouldn't have been able to do if he didn't see me excel in squatting. So that part of the journey was really just the credibility piece. And when I walked into Queens as at that point I didn't have all the tattoos and I think I had a half sleeve at the time. But anyway, like I'm a bigger dude, but I'm 5'10". I'm not really commanding a lot of physical authority. But when I can jump into a workout and bounce any kid in that on that team, you're going to get respect. Um, but when I was at Robert Morris, Todd really taught me what it meant to actually truly love the people that you're working with, like to show love to every person that walks through that door. It's something that I very much respect about him, that he will always put the athletes first. That's one of the reasons why he ended up leaving Robert Morris and moving on to, his I think he went to James Madison after that. Um, and then, with Cam was a tactician. Like Cam was so technical with everything that he did. Mark was more so like a blend of the two. He had the tactical, but he was working in D3, so there was a lot of limitations for him. So I had a lot of amazing mentors that helped me shape the philosophy that I wanted to approach the weight room because I love the science. I think the science is absolutely beautiful, but what I more so appreciate is how you apply the science to the N of one person in front of you. Because every human being is different. Every person is wired different psychologically. And one of the core pillars that we have in our business is that the physiology only matters as much as the psychology allows. So we always approach our relationship with our clients as the number one factor in how we program for them or how we, write their nutrition plans and work on behavior change and things like that. With Coach's Corner University, that is the core principle. It's you need to have the X's and O's knowledge, but you can't be locked into a box. So all of the lectures on Coach's Corner University are structured to present the X's and O's, but then also how they can be manipulated within your paradigm of training to the person that you're actually working with. Because to me, that's the missing piece. The missing piece in education as a coach is the context, how you apply that knowledge to the individual within the context or the scenario that they exist in their life. That's the difference between being a programmer and being a coach.
That's awesome. Yes, I mean, I have no joke. I was writing down like context. I was like, oh,
Oh,
that's exactly what it is. And I feel like a lot of young coaches miss the boat on that too, because I think that spectrum, when you talk about like the art of coaching, you see like the art, science, you're like, which kind of coach early in your career are you going to be? Like, I think most coaches like tend to lean towards one. You know you want to be a blend of them, but
totally.
like you lean on your strong suits. If you're a tactician, you're really good at like relating to athletes because you have the credibility, like you're gonna go on that. And you can kind of play catch up when it comes to the science portion of it because you have at least the athlete's ear. And then if
Mhm.
you're super smart, like you can kind of break down the why to some of those athletes. But then at the end of the day, like you still have to find a way to kind of relate to them. Otherwise, they feel like you're just kind of a sports scientist or you're one of the outside kind of like cheer group looking into athletics, just wanting to be part of it. It takes a while to kind of crack that code as a young coach.
I think it's way easier to go from personable to professional than it is to go from professional to personal. So like I truly didn't learn how to empathize. Like I could kind of do it. I was okay when I left Robert Morris and when I was at U Tampa. At Queens, I kind of got a little bit better because I was the guy, so I could set the framework. But in the interim, so when I first started Master Athletic Performance, it wasn't paying the bills. So I had to get a full-time job. And that full-time job, I didn't know what I was walking into, but I ended up working as a rehabilitation specialist for an insurance company. So essentially what I was doing was coordinating treatment plans for individuals who were on disability and needed to get back to work. I thought that was like reading x-rays and MRI reports and giving advice to the physiotherapists or the massage therapist or whatever, or the kins. I was also dealing with psychologists and I was working with individuals who had mental illness. And, when you go from MFing a kid on a field, literally like two months removed from MFing a kid on a summer football field to trying to convince Sally that it was okay for her to walk to the end of her laneway, that is a complete paradigm shift in the way that you communicate. And so I actually was in that position. I held that position for 6 years. As I built up Master Athletic Performance, I was working in this role. But because of my skills as a strength coach and managing chaos and being efficient with my time, I could do that full-time job in 20 hours a week. So the remainder of that time, I built up Master Athletic Performance. When I eventually quit working for the insurance company, I had 80 clients online. So I was making twice as much money online as I was in my full-time job. And that was the benchmark that I set for myself. Like, hey, when I get to this point, I will quit. And when I quit, then everything just took off because I had the infrastructure in place.
Yeah, it's smart too, like to be able to go through that process, like where you already have a job, and like I've talked to enough of young coaches that are like trying to get out, and like it's so much easier to get a job when you already have a job. So I mean, just kind of suck it up until you find something. But yeah, that's a paradigm shift. I mean, it's a mind fuck to go from
Oh
like
yeah.
an FBS Division 1 team and like a staff of almost five at that point before the rules being made. There's probably, I mean. Coach Mack is always, I worked for Coach Mack 10 years after you did.
Hmm.
There's still always like somewhere between 5 and 25 interns around.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's so many people around to like kind of help and him directing traffic. So it's chaos. And like
Hmm.
that prepares you for a type of coaching, a type of setting that, yeah, people that are in the rehab setting, private sector, online, probably don't necessarily like really get the full grasp of that unless you've experienced it. But then on the flip side too, like you don't really understand like as a college strength coach, like what's going on when you're trying to convince someone to like do what we would consider mundane tasks or like to overcome like a fear of sitting down because you can't get up or whatever sort of like
Hmm.
issue that is. And I have to bet that that lends really well when you're looking at taking on new clients that could be in any sort of situation. And from like talking to you, I know that you don't kind of really discriminate or like hone in specifically on one type of client. If it fits like your system a little bit, and if it fits like it's a good mutual benefit and like you can help them and they can like it seems like a right fit. I mean, you can explain a lot better. Like, how do you kind of vet the process when it comes to someone that might be interested in coming on as a client, like for Master Athletic Performance and your staff?
So I mean, it can be simplified down to someone who believes that training and nutrition is a vehicle for personal development. So if they view training and nutrition as more than just X's and O's, we're going to work well together. That also comes down to how we set expectations from the onset. Like we demand a lot from our clients and we will ask them to do things that make them uncomfortable. And the only thing that we ask in return is that they communicate with us. The clients that do very well for us are highly communicative, and we want that in our clients. Like we purposefully run a very high touch coaching model because we want to be involved in our clients' lives. I like this is maybe a flex, maybe not, but two of my clients just got married and they asked me to speak at their wedding. So to me, that was the highest honor that I've ever been asked, been given, was the opportunity to speak on the quality of these two individuals who have decided to get married. And I think that's the standard that we hold for the relationships that we build. And from a business perspective, like there's a reason why we focus so heavily on the coach athlete relationship. Because if you want to have a successful business, you need a very high customer lifetime value, right? You need to be able to retain your clients month over month and year over year. It's easy to build a roster when you don't lose clients. It's also way cheaper to market your business when you don't use clients or lose clients, excuse me. So, I do believe that's the best way to coach people, but it's also lends itself to a very successful business. Like our average retention across all of our coaches is over a year. So if I'm signing a client at, let's say, 250 bucks a month, well, actually, we'll make it easier. Say it's 300 bucks a month and I'm keeping them for a year. That means every client I sign, I'm making $3,600. Well, how much money do you really need to be making, or how many clients do you really need to work with to earn a very respectable income when every single one through your door is $3,600? It's not many, so that's what I preach in the mentorship side of things is you lead with service and business will follow, right? If you pour into your people, your business will grow. And I think at this stage, if I was to say the one weakness of our industry and of young coaches is they're learning how to market before they learn how to coach. So they are building businesses that are great at acquiring clients, but they can't keep them. And they can't keep them because their ability to form relationships is so poor. So when linking it back to the education piece, I always link the X's and O's back to the individual because your ability to coach the individual is what's going to actually keep them with you, which is going to eventually build your business. So, coach the client, not the program. That's like I say it almost every lecture on the platform. It's like coach the client, not the program. And when you lead with service, the income is just a proxy of great service, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's well put too. Like, and I think I've seen it, and I think a lot of coaches have seen it too. It's just like the flashy, quick grab, like promotions or just like new tech, whatever it is, like marketing is just like through the roof of like how fast it is for young coaches. And a lot of them feel, I don't know if it's entitlement, but a lot of them feel like they're not making enough money, like they can make more or they can leverage like being in a good position like college athletics that they can bring on more count like clients on the offshoot just because they work with elite athletes. But like the athletes come to them. So it's not like they're seeking them out.
I think it's okay. So I agree with you, but I think it's also a double-edged sword because they only know what they know, and you don't know what you don't know. And so if all you're told is you can make 10K a month, totally you can. You can also make way more than that. Um, like there was a month, I think it was, I've had a couple of them. I think the last one was in the fall where I made more in a month than I made in a year as a college strength coach. But I did that through service. There's a reason why I drive a BMW M8 and I never post about it. It's because that's my reminder that service allows me to have the things that I have. I could easily post about that and try to promote my mentorship, but I don't want that type of coach to enter my mentorship. And if I can, you know, pull back the curtain for any young coaches listening who want to make a living online, when you hear coaches making 50 grand, 60 grand, even 10 grand a month, that's because they're more than likely working with a mentor who preaches a paid in full contract system. So they might make 50 grand one month because they sold 10 contracts, but I guarantee you the next month they're making $0. So one of the things that we preach, and this is like in our business model, is we only do uh, month to month we don't do contracts. You enter into a relationship with your coach where you're paying your coach every month. That way, I never have to have conversations about renewing contracts, and I separate the transaction from the relationship. Because as long as you're happy and the relationship between client and coach is being fostered appropriately, you're going to stay. It also, on my end, I don't have to worry about, oh, what are my expenses this month and what's my income? My income's the same every month as long as my roster stays the same. So it's a lot easier to manage. These online, masterminds and incubators and whatever you want to call them, it's smoke and mirrors, man. And it's something that I fight against constantly because I've literally built my mentorship in opposition of everything that those guys do. We don't do ads. We don't do paid in fulls. We only focus on client relationship. We focus on the client journey, how they experience the coaching with us. And I focus on building a stable monthly recurring revenue that you can actually build a life off of. Because if you have these like massive swings in income, number one, most people are not mature enough to live within their means. So you make 50 grand one month, you're spending 50 grand for sure. And if anyone thinks that that's ridiculous, it's easy to spend $50,000 in this economy. Okay. Live within your means, build your business build slow, sustainable, and more than anything, resilient. Resilient to the fluctuations in the market, resilient to the changes in the industry. Because if you're in that situation, it's just way less stressful. And honestly, you'll enjoy your job a lot more because you won't always be hunting for acquisition. When you're hunting for acquisition, you are beholden to your business. I did a consult with a coach recently. So this coach built a phenomenal business. He's incredibly successful and he does lead with service. But the way he structured his business is his acquisition is done by call setters and closers, and then he does the fulfillment with his team. But if he doesn't have enough roster spots to create a need for the call setters and salespeople, then they're not going to eat because they work off commission. So he has to continue to grow his roster of coaches to create spots for those people to sell. So if ever he decides that he's done growing his business, he has to fire his acquisition team and then do it all himself. So he's now created a model where he is beholden to his system and he can't stop. I don't know about you, but I didn't get into business for myself to be beholden to anyone.
Yeah, especially when you're running your own business too. Like that's one of the major appeals of it too. Like you can scale it
Yeah.
however you want. Like you have the individual freedom to kind of set your own schedule, like create what the ethos is going to be of it, and then figure out like what your standards and expectations look like if you're going to hire people. Like that whole process falls under you. Like CEO, founder, owner,
Mhm.
like those are nice, cool buzzwords that a lot of people want to put probably
Right.
in their bios. But when you really kind of peel back the responsibilities that go into it, there's a lot of reason why people put them in there and take them out real quick because they don't have a business anymore to say that they founded. So it's I like what you said too, like resilient, like because the market is always changing too. And you're working with people of different backgrounds, different places all the time. Like we see kind of all the changes and fluctuation. One thing I wanted to kind of touch on too with like how the process works because I'm trying to like wrap my head around it. Like thinking from a collegiate, like tactical style coach is I'm I'm of the mindset of I'm only going to have my athletes for a certain amount of time. Like in college, maybe I'll get them for a year or a semester, up to 4 or 5 years if they stay the whole time. Tactical is kind of the same way. Like I might get a couple before they deploy or they leave or they PCS somewhere else. So like I'm not going to have them forever. So my goal is to try to give them all the tools so they can be make good habits, like continue to be healthy, be successful and train well, but have all the tools that they can kind of function on their own. That's
Mhm.
it's kind of I know you want to do that as a servant leader and like but at the
Yep.
same time
Of
you're having
course.
a business. So when you're talking about kind of keeping client life and like keeping them on board, like when is like a time period is there an appropriate time to tell a client like, hey, maybe you're best suited on your own now, or like you have
Absolutely.
all the tools, like, or maybe I need to outsource to someone else to kind of fit their goals. Like, how do you approach that maybe how do you also like kind of gain some insight and feedback as they're on the way out? Because it's not like you're chalking up to be bad. It's what's best for them moving forward.
So one of my goals with Coaches Corner University is I want to bring on additional mentors to work with me, and they're going to have different expertise. So one of my colleagues, Dave Osborne, he has a PhD in coaching, and he has a concept called autonomy supportive coaching. And I bring that up because that should be the goal of everything that we do, right? You're giving people the tools so that they can over time become more autonomous, and eventually they don't need you. Here's the key. I don't want to work with clients who need me for very long. I want to work with clients who want to work with me. And that's where the relationship comes in. So this is probably my biggest, actually, I take that back. The biggest cool part about my career in coaching has been speaking at those clients' wedding. The second is I still work with my first client. So we're talking 2015. That's 11 years he's been with me. We've done countless powerlifting meets. I've seen him become a father. I've seen him get a divorce. I've seen him go into different relationships. I've seen him get a job. I've seen him buy a gym. He's now a gym owner, right? So this guy's been with me forever. He doesn't need me. He wants to work with me. So one of the things that I am always doing is finding opportunities for clients to gain autonomy. And once they gain autonomy, they realize that having guidance through that process and having someone who's able to zoom out when they're in it or to zoom in on the details when they're not able to see the differences, these are the people that truly want to optimize every aspect of their life. They want guidance along this journey so that they can maximize everything that they're doing with their training and nutrition so that they can live the best life possible. And when you look at that from the perspective of, call it customer lifetime value of how much money you're making over the course of the lifetime of a client, there have been many times where I'm like, hey, dude, I don't think you need to work with me anymore. And I've had some clients be like, yeah, I think I want to try doing it on my own. But I've also had clients that say, yeah, I don't need to, but I want to. I want to work with you. Another KPI that we have in our bit. So KPI or key performance indicator for anyone listening is metrics that you track that have important outcomes on the back end. So you can always track your roster size. You can track your churn rate, which is how many clients leave versus how many clients come in. You can track your income over the years. You can track feedback questionnaires and ratings of satisfaction. There's a number of important KPIs. There's two KPIs that I think are most important for a sustainable and resilient business. The first is referrals. So, how many of your clients actually bring you more clients? And we have a very, very high referral rate. So, our clients do a lot of our marketing for us. The second KPI, which I've never heard anyone talk about, and I'm surprised I've never spoken about it publicly, but I'm going to do here today, is how many clients leave and come back? I have probably one client a month who's coming back to work with me after being away for a certain period of time. And it's not because they need to, it's because they've picked a different goal or their life situation has changed and they valued the relationship that we have and they want to re-enter into that relationship so that I can guide them through this next chapter. It's so much easier to sell to people who have already worked with you than it is to get new clients. It's also easier to continue to serve people who you're currently serving than to get new clients. Client acquisition is the most expensive part of business. So if you can do away with that through impeccable service quality, you're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. The whole mindset of like I'm only working with somebody for a set period of time, that's a paradigm that starts with the language you use around your coaching. So if you're only using contracts, it's like, hey, here's a 12-month contract. You're essentially saying, I only want to work with you for 12 months, or you're only going to work with me for 12 months. Let's reframe that. So Nick, you and I are on a first date. Okay.
All right.
Pause. Um, I tell you, hey, I care about you so deeply, but I only want to care about you for 12 months. Are you going to invest into that relationship?
Not very much. Not only to
No,
that point.
right. You're not going to invest into that relate. You're not going to give your whole self to that relationship. If I challenge you, you can walk away. But if you know that I'm in this with you for the long haul, and we're not talking about, a set duration of time or an 8-week challenge or a 12-week challenge or a contract of any kind. And all we're talking about is building a relationship that is mutually beneficial, you're going to invest. And so language dictates everything. So I think this brings up the other conversation about alignment. It's like if you say that you're going to do X, let's say for us, we're a high touch coaching model. Well, then every one of the systems that we use within our business should foster a high touch coaching service. If I'm talking about personal development, that means there have to be elements within the coaching that foster personal development. If I'm talking about optimizing biomechanics, there has to be something within the coaching that optimizes biomechanics. And I think a lot of people, when starting their business, they don't have a ton of clarity around the things that they actually want and the things that their ideal client actually needs. So they end up just coaching. Just here's your program, send me videos, let's do it. But it has to go deeper. It has to go deeper because if that's all you are, you're a commodity. And ultimately, coaching, you know, for coaching with me, full coaching with me, nutrition and training is 525 a month. You could drive a Mercedes for 525 a month. But instead of driving a Mercedes, you're going to pay me to coach you. Well, if all I'm doing is writing you a program, I don't know about you, but I'd rather drive a Mercedes. So I'm going to be the first expense that gets cut when your life situation changes. But if I'm someone who's with you through thick and thin, who's able to give you confidence to attack life, who's able to build you up when you're down, who's able to put your feet to the fire when you need to be challenged, that becomes so much more valuable than a transaction that takes place, regardless of how expensive it is.
Yeah, those touch points become so much more crucial when they actually like they're embedded in the fabric of everything you do. Like when you
Hmm.
talk about like coaching and nutrition, like all these things are exactly what drives everything in your daily life. You start to shift your focus of like a need versus a want, and like not from the coaching aspect from, but what's being like what you're getting in return, like how
Hmm.
beneficial that is at the end of the day. And that's huge to have that kind of feedback from the clients and like hear all the success stories and like see how that relationship is fostered for some of them like almost 15 years, and then some of them to the point where they're return customers and they're coming back and they take a break only to like set a new goal and then seek you out again, which is
Yep.
huge. Like again, like I'm coming from a large background, like staying in the collegiate sector and then like tactical settings. So like more team-based, more like large group settings and primarily in person. So it's always
Hmm.
fascinating to kind of see how you take and make an online platform through apps, like video, like conversations, all this stuff, and you make it personable. Because I'm sure
Hmm.
a lot of these individuals you may have never met in person or had anything more than a video chat. So
Yep.
there's ways you have to connect. How, like first off, how do you kind of again make these touch points seem more personable and like really kind of build that relationship with them? One, without like it feeling transactional, which I know you don't do, but like how do you make sure that
Yeah.
that is at the forefront? And then also, how do you like kind of in a way like when you lay out the standards and expectations, like draw a little bit of line in the sand of like, this is the expectation of also communication between us and what kind of crosses the line or what's too much. And then now I have to kind of put like my professional hat on again.
Yeah. So, okay, there's a few ways to dive into this. The first concept that I'll introduce you to is something that I call the proximity gap. So when you're coaching somebody in person, you are proximal to them. You're right in front of their face. You can see them, you can touch them, they can hear you, they can see you. It's very easy to form a relationship like that. Now, when you enter into the online space, that proximity gap expands. Like I have a client who lives in Kuwait right now. I don't know if well, you're in the military, so you're very familiar with the political climate in Kuwait right now. He and I speak almost every day because I'm always checking in with him. Hey man, how's it going? How's your sleep? Alerts waking you up at night, you know? Showing an interest in his well-being over and above, hey, did you hit your macros today? Because he's a nutrition client. So that's one. It's just like show a general interest in your clients as people because you care, because you actually care. And that's more of like a coaching soft skills, but we systematize everything. So one of the things that I do, especially with the coaches who work for us, is I can't expect that the younger coaches who work with us have the same soft skills as me. So how do I create systems for them that allow them to develop those? So first and foremost, in all of our intake forms, there it starts off with the personal section where we ask them about their marital status, their birthday, their occupation, their wife's name, their kids' names, their pets' names, and we keep all that information in their file. And I make sure that our coaches reference to that. And in each one of their check-ins, they have to touch on something personal with the client and ask them about it. Hey, how's your wife doing? Or how's your wife Kim doing? Hey, did you have that conversation that we talked about last week? Like, and that sort of thing breaks the ice a little bit. It relaxes people. So that's number one, very basic part of the intake process. The next is I want to get to know this person's psychology. So part of our intake process again is we have a questionnaire related to the coach athlete relationship. How do you want to be coached when you're doing well? How do you want to be coached when you're falling short? How do you want to be coached when you're going through a hard time? How do you want to celebrate wins? All of these things are very important because all of those things are part of your journey. And I want to know how you want to be coached during that. And some clients really push back on that. Now, I had a recent exchange with one of my nutrition clients who said, "Hey, I want you to put my feet to the fire when I'm struggling." And I put his feet to the fire and he pushed back on me. And I was like, "Yo, dude, you wrote in your sheet that you wanted me to put your feet to the fire and you're not stepping up right now, so get your shit right." Guess what? He thanked me. We have a better relationship now. So that those are two things: intake process and additional information, we'll call it. The third is frequent touch points. So I use every training session as an opportunity to touch base with my clients because they're sending me videos. So I'm able to, obviously comment on their technique, but then also, hey, how's your day going today? Are you still super stressed about that thing at work? And I'm keeping that conversation flow going at all times. So the thread of communication with a client essentially reads like an ongoing text conversation all week. The third is how you do check-ins. So we used to back in the day do check-ins via email. So I just type an email, send the check-in. Now we have so much technology available to us. All of our client check-ins are done via video. So I have a screen capture software called Loom, which will screencast my screen so I can show them their inputs. I can talk through all the things that they're doing well, all the areas they need to improve, all of the modifications that we're making on a week-to-week basis. And they get to hear my voice and see my face. They can hear my intonations. And this completely changes the way that they view it because I'm right there with them now. I'm not just a keyboard behind a screen. I'm actually a real human. And that has been a game changer for our coaching. We implemented it a few years ago and it's been fantastic. So we have those three. The third is celebrating wins. Like we make sure that our clients know when they're doing a great job. We make sure, we celebrate these wins, whether they're micro wins, like, hey, you hit your macros this week, or big wins, like, hey, you set a PR, you set a world record, great job. Though that is very, very crucial. The final piece of this is to actually care. And I know that sounds very broad, and I know it sounds very simple, but it's easy to tell when someone is faking it. It's easy to tell when your coach is just like going through the motions with you. because I've had coaches. I always have a coach because personally, I don't want to program for myself because I'm an asshole and I like being the athlete. I like just showing up. Hey, Paul, you got a 10-minute warm up, 3 by 10 minutes hard, 5 minute recovery between, 5 minute cool down, hour and 5 minute run. Go have fun. I like that. I'm gonna go do that. Um, but to actually be invested in the process with them and participate in the process with them, empathize with their challenges, celebrate their wins. Again, ask them how their performances in the gym are correlating with their wins outside the gym. This is all part of it. And so when it comes to like fostering that connection, it's really, really all about how you systematize these touch points and then the way that you communicate those touch points with video, especially. I'll make a note. Voice notes are cool, but I find voice notes incredibly inconvenient to the point where my clients know not to send me voice notes. There's two reasons for that. Number one, it's way easier for me to read your response than it is to hear you ramble for 4 minutes. Number two, I don't send my clients voice notes because voice notes don't transcribe in the app that we're using, so they can't read it if they want to. And if ever they want to reference back to something I've said, they have to re-listen to the voice note. So if I really want that feedback to stick and then for them to be able to reference back to it, text is always better. So free tip for anyone who is listening and is coaching online, there's a software called Whisperflow. It's they have it on Apple and PC now. It's a dictation software that actually formats and corrects your grammar as you speak. So I barely type anymore. I just dictate to my laptop. So it gets the speed of a voice note with the accuracy of text.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I'll have to check that one out too. And I on like the voice notes, I feel like anytime you create them, you're always making them in a rush because
Yeah, that's
it's
fair.
it's too much to like sit down and actually video it, but it's like you want it to be quick enough that you can get it out quick, but you don't want to sit down and type everything out. So it's like the weird happy medium and it doesn't fit either category. It's
I
the
once had
worst
a
of both worlds.
I once had a client send me a 9 minute voice note,
Oh.
and I didn't listen to it, and because he was a new client and I hadn't had that conversation, that I absolutely despise voice notes. If you send me a voice note, so typically if I get a text message or a WhatsApp message or a message in our app, like I'm replying probably within 6 to 8 minutes. I'm really quick with my replies. I always have my phone by me. If you send me a voice note, it'll be 3 days. I just hate listening to them. They drive me nuts. But he sent me a 9 minute voice note and I just replied back, "Hey man, my Wi-Fi isn't great. I can't listen to this. What did you need to tell me?" And it was 3 sentences long, Nick. I was like, "Bro, don't do this." Um, the voice note, like I forgot to touch on the last point that you asked me, which was when is it too much? It's never too much. Okay, so this is another really important thing is you as the coach set boundaries. Your clients will play within those boundaries. So I set my work hours. So if you send me a voice note, if you send me a message in the app past 8:30 p.m., I'm not going to reply to you until tomorrow. I choose when I work. So if you're communicating through the appropriate medium, I will reply to you within the guidelines of our terms of service, which is a contract that all of our clients have of like, hey, this is how we communicate. If you send me a message or an email, I'm going to reply within 24 hours. If you send me videos, I'll reply within 48 hours with the reviews. They know all that and we hit those benchmarks. But the thing is like, if I have 24 hours to review or reply to a message, well, then I can take 24 hours to reply to a message. They can only communicate so much within 24 hours. You know what I mean? So that's for us. Like as a coach, you want your clients to communicate as much as possible, but you dictate the cadence based on your reply. So that it's easy to manage.
No, that's no, that's a great way to put it too. Like setting those boundaries too, but like it's a two-way street how you want the communication to go, but I think that's well put saying like the cadence is dictated by the coach because the same as like a new client sending a 9-minute voice note, like all it took, like if you would have responded right away, now he's sending those forever versus, hey man, what did you really want to say? I don't like the Wi-Fi is not working, and then he could spit it out in 3 sentences. Like he knew what he was trying to say.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just it's almost like attention seeking a little bit from him. And I mean, that's new client trying to figure all that stuff out. And maybe like, I'm sure like you get online clients that are the similar as like online coaches in the very beginning. Like they're still new to the system, like kind of working with like that proximity gap, not really understanding like how much is too much or is this a bother or how to kind of work this relationship. So it's something I'm sure that they kind of like teeter with the line about how to do things. Um,
That's
kind
a sorry to interrupt
yeah,
before we
yeah,
go on. That's also another shift in the industry. So because coaching has been like essentially is ubiquitous with fitness. Like if you are engaging in fitness, you probably have a coach or are following a program. So we very rarely get clients who have never been coached before. That works to our advantage because they've never been coached the way that we coach before. They've either had someone who does X's and O's, here's your check-in, see you later, or they've had the complete opposite of, yeah, I'll see you when I see you, here's your program. Very rarely have they had someone as invested in the process as we are. So when you are creating your service delivery model, you want to be able to differentiate yourself as someone who is actually invested because the standard of the industry is very low. So it's really easy to excel at it. Back in the day, we pretty much had to train our clients on how to be coached. And so that has stayed with us because even though they've been coached before, they've never been coached by us. So when I talk about onboarding, yeah, the intake form, very robust. We've got multiple questionnaires throughout that process. We've got our terms of service that tells them exactly what they're getting, what we expect from them, what they expect from us. And then we also have along the way different education modules that we will send them on, hey, this is how you use our app. Hey, this is how you communicate with us. One of the worst things you can do as a coach is give people your phone number and say, hey, text me whenever. The only people that have my phone number and can communicate with me through text message are my family and friends. If you're a client of mine, you communicate with me through the app or through email. If you're a mentee of mine, you communicate with me through WhatsApp or through email. So if I'm not working, I'm not in my WhatsApp, I'm not in our coaching app, and I'm not in my email. But if I'm working, yeah, I'll reply back to you.
yeah. That's to have that delineation and have that separation between like personal life and coaching and like the business. I think that's where a lot of coaches kind of go wrong. And it's probably no fault of their own when you're talking about like outside of like the entrepreneur online coaching space, because if you're part of a team, part of a strength conditioning department, like you only have your phone number. You can't go tell the head strength coach, like, hey, you can only contact me through this number. Like it's you're
Yeah, but
on
there's
call.
Slack channels. Like you
Right.
can like our team uses WhatsApp for our communications now, but we'll be transitioning to something else very soon. Um, Ultimately, like you dictate the cadence and you dictate the modality, but you have to separate church and state. And this is a mistake that I made very early on in my business. And as I've gotten older and my responsibilities have grown, I'm now a husband. I'd like to be a father one day. I don't want to be bombarded with text messages from my clients all day because it's going to pull me away from being present. And so by creating that separation of communication channels, when I'm working, I'm working. When I'm not working, I'm not working. And I think the reason most coaches will give their phone numbers is because they have a scarcity mindset. If I don't reply immediately, they'll leave. Listen, if you don't reply immediately and they leave, you didn't do your job in the first place. Plain and simple.
Yeah, that's a good point. Touching on kind of like the separation between like you're talking about clients and then the coaching like relationship. Let's kind of shift gears a little bit like to your athletic career and everything too.
Sure.
Like simultaneously you were like a competitive athlete and coaching. You went through different changes, completing your master's degree and everything too. It's like it's a tale as old as time for young coaches trying to break it in the college sector. Um, but how was that experience for you kind of juggling those two different things? We talked about how they already balanced each other off, but like, how did you really kind of like what were kind of some of the big takeaways that you took from and your time like competing and then shifting focus to different sports? Because now in bodybuilding is different, probably takeaways than now what you're doing currently, not
Mhm.
hybrid, but like, you know,
Being shitty at lifting and running combined.
hey,
Um,
that perfect middle ground.
the perfect middle ground. Yeah, I'm terrible at everything. Um, so it, it it used to really bother me when I would hear coaches say, "Oh, I can't pursue my own fitness because I'm so devoted to my clients." I think that's bullshit, and I think you're actually doing your clients a disservice because you're not walking the walk anymore. And if you're asking them to do things that you're not willing to do yourself, I think that lacks a lot of moral fiber, in my opinion. So I've already told you, I run the coaching business, I have the education business, I'm a husband, I train 12 times a week. Realistically speaking, so 12 times a week at about 1.5 hours per session, you're looking at about 18 hours a week. That's not very much time. When I was powerlifting, it was even less. So I was training 4 days a week, maybe five at the most for 2 hours at a time. So you're talking about at the most 10 hours of training a week. What are you doing with your other time? Like, I don't watch TV. I don't, my day starts when I wake up, my feet hit the floor. I still wake up at 4 a.m. because I love waking up at 4 a.m. It's super quiet, it's peaceful. No one else is awake. My wife doesn't wake up for another like 2 or 3 hours. I have those 2 or 3 hours to wake up, make my coffee, read for about a half an hour. I'll get my first workout of the day done. I'll answer a few emails, have my breakfast. I'll go train. By 11 o'clock, I've already trained twice. And then I can be at my desk from 11 to 8:30. That's a 9.5 hour workday. And I've already taken care of my shit. Now, when we have a family, I know that schedule will probably shift, but I don't see a world where I can't have my cake and eat it too. Like I will always be an athlete. Like that is something that I know is in my bones. I will always train. What that looks like might change. There are different seasons of life, there are different periods of the year. Right now, I'm training for a trail race, so mileage is climbing up. The time spent outside is rising. I may weight train a little bit less, but I'm still going to go train at least 3 times a week. To me, it comes down to integrity. Like the promises that I make to myself are the same promises that I'm asking my clients to make to themselves. So who am I to give them advice on how to do something if I'm not doing it myself? Do I think that you need to be a world-class athlete to be a phenomenal coach? No. Does it help? Yes. Right? Like there was a reason why I started getting a lot of powerlifting clients. It's because I was squatting over 800, but I wasn't training like a powerlifter, quote unquote. I was still jumping. I was still, doing bodybuilding type accessories. I was still doing lateral movements in the frontal plane that no one else was doing. And they were like, huh, like, why is he doing that stuff? It's obviously working. So it created a bit of novelty, but that was my sports performance background. And now, coming into let's call it hybrid athletics. Coming into hybrid athletics is like, for me, it's been fun because it's almost like a return to athleticism that I pretty much spent the last 15 years training out of my body. And now I get to revisit it and rediscover it. I was talking to Cody, my coach, your coworker, and I'm like, man, like it's really weird. Running fast feels way more comfortable than running slow. He's like, dude, you were an athlete for 22 years. Of course it feels better to run fast than run slow. You're fast. It's like, huh, I guess I am fast. Cool. And I mean, and the other thing too is like, as I've gone through these different phases of my own athletic career, the types of clients that will come seek help from me has changed. When I was competing at a high level in powerlifting, I coached a lot of powerlifters. Now I coach less powerlifters, kind of resting on my laurels in that regard. Uh, I coach a lot of bodybuilders now, and I coach a lot of athletes who want to lift and run. It's because they see me doing that. So if you're not training hard, it's going to be really hard to get credibility, both socially, like on social media and in your marketing, but also from the clients that you're trying to serve.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting to kind of hear it from your perspective that like the coach, like the clients that you have shifted kind of as your career has shifted.
Mhm.
And I've noticed it with other people that have been online. I've heard other like coaches or maybe individuals that do like smaller scale coaching just on the side. That's kind of been their shift as like their career trajectory has changed or their goals have changed. But I think at the end of the day, like your body is your billboard. So if you're a coach and you're trying to portray like a marathon runner, you're going to get a lot of marathon like athletes that want to be coached by you. Same thing for powerlifting. And I think I wanted to get your take on this because like a lot of young coaches, they gravitate to something. We get a lot of young coaches that come into the college setting too that are fresh out of school and they only know what they know. And that's
Mhm.
like whatever their coach did. And I think you talked about it too. Like you weren't really able to kind of maybe find yourself and try the new things that like Coach Wintrich and like McKeefery were saying for you to do while you're at USF, it almost is so much easier to kind of reinvent yourself when you go somewhere else and you go to Robert Morris and you can kind of try that coaching style outside of the shadow of the coaches that wanted you to kind of change because I feel like you kind of play both ways. You're like, I want to change, but this is how I started. And they're gonna like kind of know I changed and they're thinking I'm emulate you. Like
Well,
how
you
do coaches how do you think those young coaches maybe step outside of the only thing that they know so that they can at least like expand their horizons and not just only be a coach that coaches what they do?
I think part of it, you touched on it in our podcast. You said you never wanted to be a little version of the coach who you worked for. And I thought that was really insightful because when you are working under a coach, your job is to be that coach's shadow. It's for you to be almost like a twin version of them so that there's alignment between all of the coaches and their philosophies on the team. So it's tough to change. And so I empathize. When you step out and no two coaches systems are the same. Like Todd's system was way different than Ron's. Frank's system way different than Ron's with his own teams, but when he was working with football, he coached Ron's program. And when you're reinventing yourself and you get into a new environment, you can try new things, you're exposed to new things. The one thing you have to remember is there is no universal tool. But the more tools that you have in your toolbox, the more people you're going to be able to help. I think it's almost like a rite of passage to go through the Dunning-Kruger curve. Like you get out of school, you think you know everything. Then as you learn more, you realize how little you know. And then you get to my age. I've been coaching for 22 years almost. I started coaching when I was, no, not 22 years, 19 years. I'll be 39 this year. I know nothing. Like I know nothing to be certain. That's a pretty cool place to be because there's less pressure and you can try new things. I'm also my own boss, so if I fuck up, it's on my shoulders.
Yeah, heavy wears the crown.
Yeah, I
It's
know, man. It's tough.
no, that's a great way to. I mean, we kind of all go through it at different times of your life too. Like, and then you start diving deep into a certain topic, and then coach, like you said, there's so many tools, there's so many different ways to kind of skin the cat out there. You dive
Mhm.
deep into something specific, and you feel like you reach the edge of it, and then like you peel the surface on a different book, or you kind of dive down a different area, and you're like. Oh man, I'm a mile deep on this one thing, but if I go an inch or over, I haven't even like scratched the surface.
Yeah.
It's never ending, but like I feel like at least touching on some of those, it's hard to find. Do you want to be a master of one thing or do you want to be a master of none and just kind of be a Swiss Army knife? I like the Swiss Army knife approach, but I feel at times you have to dig a little bit deeper into the things that either your clients and athletes need or something that like really intrigues you to kind of light that fire again.
Yeah, and I think that's where your own training comes in. It's like go as deep as you want into your own training, but you do need like if you're going to serve a lot of different populations, you do have to have a lot of different tools. And humans are very complex, but they're also really simple. Like we all have specific needs. We all seek validation. We all seek fulfillment or like self-actualization. So if you're catering to a population in a way that, you always have to be great at something. I think you should have a calling card of some realm. If I was to say what's my calling card, it would be more so on like the performance nutrition side of things. Like I do that very well. I'm also really good at getting people really strong, but I'm still good at other stuff. So in my opinion, I'm never going to stop learning. And actually, every year I pick one topic to dive deep into. So I audit myself as a coach and I'm honest where my shortcomings are. And I pick one of those shortcomings and I attack it every year until it becomes a strength. So last year, I saw that peptides were becoming very popular. I'm like, cool, I'm going to dive deep and I'm going to learn as much as I can about the science of peptides. Great. This year, I was noticing more and more I was having female clients coming to me with hormone dysfunction or gut health issues. So I reached out to one of the smartest people I know, Meredith Patchy, and I said, Meredith, lucky for me, Meredith is a mentee and a client of mine. So I just said, hey, Meredith, I'll mentor you in your business. You're going to mentor me on gut health and hormones. Great. So every 2 weeks, her and I meet. One week we talk about her business, other week we talk about hormones and gut health, and then I'm in her group mentorship as well. So like my quest for knowledge will never stop, and I never will be an expert in everything, but I'm going to be pretty dangerous at most things. And the beauty of it is, man, it's always changing. It's always changing. So you're never going to be ahead of the curve. Just accept it and keep growing.
Yeah, just enough knowledge to be dangerous. That's all you need.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great to have that relationship with the client and be able to exchange things back and forth too.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's awesome too to hear like as knowledgeable and like in depth as you have been, like owning your own business that like focuses on CUs and continuing education and like the science and practical side of the profession. Like you yourself are still a student of the game
of
and
course.
still always kind of searching and seeking out other answers. Well, that's great advice. Everybody needs to kind of be humble and dive into something, make a weakness a strength and capitalize on that. So, hey man, I know we could go on for a little bit on
Yeah, probably.
everything, but like any good training session, we got to end the show with the finisher. So I got 4 quarters, 4 questions,
Okay.
and overtime at the end. But we'll go rapid fire for you.
All right.
So, first one I got for you, biggest influence in the strength and conditioning profession.
I have to give that to Todd. I have to give that to Todd. When I got to Robert Morris, I thought he hated me. I was very hard-headed. I was very set in my ways. But over those 2 years, he broke me down and I felt like I really stepped up and became the on the path to the coach that I was supposed to become through his influence. So I got to give it up to Todd.
Hammer's the man. He was one of my favorite elite articles to always read.
It pisses me off how often I quote him now.
Damn. Hey, so second one I got, I know you've got so much stuff on your plate, but when you're not coaching, you're not kind of training, like you shut it down for the night. Like, what are maybe some of those hobbies that like kind of recharge you, if you want to call them hobbies?
I don't really have any hobbies. That was one thing that when we moved to the US, I wanted to get a hobby. So I do go shooting every week or every 2 weeks. Um, Bought way too many guns when we moved here, so that's been really fun to get into. It's a skill that you have to be fully present when you're doing, which is a lot of fun. Other than shooting, my wife and I love to travel. Um, she's my best friend. I love hanging out with her, and even if we're just laying on the couch and eating some cookies or whatever, that's good enough for me.
There we go. Hey, so if you weren't coaching, What do you think you might be doing if this was an alternate universe, alternate profession for Paul?
I'd be a professor. I'd be in the universities teaching, researching. I love the science. I think the human body is so beautiful and complex, and we'll never know all of its secrets. But I would definitely devote my time and energy into figuring out a few of them.
Okay. Hey, so setting up an ideal training day, like what's blasting on the speakers and what's your favorite post-training meal look like?
Post-training meal's easy. It's cream of rice, Greek yogurt, fruit, and whey isolate with some peanut butter. Have that pretty much every day. Um, well, pretty much that's every day. Uh, what's on the speakers? It depends if I'm lifting heavy or if I'm just getting a pump. Um, Probably some metal. Yeah, it's more than likely it's going to be metal. Um, I even pose like my posing song was "Extermination" by Upon a Burning Body. So it came on and it was like everyone in the crowd was like, "What the fuck is this?" Um, yeah, probably metal.
That's not bad. Yeah, they were just down here a couple weeks ago, or they're about to come down to my neck of the
Really?
woods. Yeah.
I haven't been to many concerts. The last concert I went to was oh my God. I think it was August Burns Red, but I was 2 weeks out from my show. So I was like sweating profusely in this concert hall. And I ended up taking my shirt off because I was sweating so much. And then I almost passed out because I was dehydrated.
Oof.
I ended up leaving after like two songs because I was just so dead.
Oh, I got a couple lined up down here. Seosin's coming, Under Oath's coming, and then Whitechapel and Chelsea
Oh,
Grin down in southern Florida. That's on the list.
one of the best concerts I ever went to was August Burns Red, um, Born of Osiris, and Era. It was
Oh,
so hard. Like my ears were bleeding when I left.
oh, don't get me. I missed the Era concert a couple months ago, and I'm still torn up about
They're
that one.
awesome live.
All right, that's on my list. All right, so last one I got for you for overtime. All right, what is like your favorite part of coaching? And then what's kind of your favorite part of training and competing if they're separated?
I think my favorite part of coaching is showing people that they can achieve goals that they didn't even think were realistic to set in the first place. Like that is, when you have somebody who achieves something that they never in a million years thought that they could achieve, whether that's a world record or whether that's cooking a healthy family dinner for their family, like to me, that's just so powerful because you're creating real change. When it comes to my own personal journey, my favorite thing, I think it's finding limits. Like I've always been somebody who has to learn the hard way. I've always been somebody who will fly close to the sun. I don't give a shit if I get burned. I want to see how close to the sun I can fly. I got into lifting to see how strong I could get, and I literally blew my kneecaps apart trying to get strong. With the running stuff, I've been running for 10 months now. I'm already running 40 miles a week at 220 pounds. Like I'm pushing limits and I think the mind is way weaker than the body. But if you get lucky, you'll find where the body breaks down. And then that's where the fun starts and you get to problem solve. So that's my favorite part.
That's cool because they're kind of similar too. Like you're trying to find your limits and like get a barrier point, but then for your athletes, you're really trying to crack the code of like how to get them past something that they thought was a barrier and just a brick wall that was impossible. And you get to be along for the journey as a coach, which is almost it's got to be just as sweet, if not sweeter
Oh yeah,
to to see them do that and kind of see the joy that's on their face because you are objectively just looking back at all the hard work and dedication and time they put into it. It's awesome. I mean, that's the coolest thing about college athletics too, is just watching them play and see the culmination of a year, 2, 3, 4 years, like get to be displayed and what they love on the field, like in the game they want to play. So
100%.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, we could go on forever and touch on all these topics. Like we're bouncing all over the place, but I love it. For anybody that's got maybe follow-up questions for you, kind of want to follow along the journey, maybe considering like Coach's Corner University or mentorships from you, what are your kind of socials they can follow along?
Sure. So you can follow me on Instagram at Paul Oneid, or I've recently dove into YouTube and doing more YouTube content. So at Paul Oneid underscore MAP. You can also follow Coach's Corner University at Coach's Corner U. I also have my Coach's Corner University podcast, which is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Um, Currently revamping the Coaches Corner University platform, and I'll be relaunching it towards the end of the summer. Hopefully, it'll be up and running by the time this episode launches. So, if so, when it does launch, I'll reach out. I'll get a coupon code for you. You can throw that in the description. Um, but it's going to be like a very low ticket. Like I want to make it very accessible to everybody. So it's probably going to be around $30 a month to be on the platform. So that's kind of the next step for me. And for mentorship, you can either go to www.coachescorneru.com slash, or sorry, mentorship.coachescorneru.com, or you can just message me on Instagram and I'll get back to you.
Awesome, man. Well, ton of resources, ton of knowledge, ton of experience. Like I said, this has been a blast, man. I appreciate you coming on today, and we'll link all that stuff in there so more people can go out and see everything that you guys have to offer on your platforms. It's been awesome
Appreciate you,
today,
man.
man.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon, man.
Yes, sir.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.